Letitia Dick and Dr, and I'm president of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute here. And we are going through number 4 today, which is the Axiom, including individuality or individualization. And I'm just going to start with Jim's quote, Jim Sensenig's quote. The reason why we put these axioms together is because we need to delineate the difference between us and functional medical doctors, allopathic doctors, alternative practitioners, because we base our nature cure philosophy and medicine on these axioms of nature. And Jim's quote here is, naturopathic medicine is based on universal principles that are true and hold true for all time. We don't have to change what we're doing for the 21st century because the same rules and laws that apply to nature and the natural process of healing are immutable. And that's what we're talking about. So we've been doing that for several months now, and now we're at month 4 here with individuality. So Jim said this is the doctrine of snowflakes, which I love that. I think that's a great analogy.
I always love that thought too, because it simplifies something that I think people can see complications in and difficulties. And it's really, I agree. It's that simple, right? We're all unique and we need something unique to bring us back to health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think what you mentioned earlier when we were talking before we started recording, Eli, is true, is that in allopathy, it's very easy to give a drug. It's very, you don't have to, I like to say they don't have to think too hard because there's already a protocol and a drug program already set up for a particular disease or disease states or disease pathways or syndromes. And docs don't have to think very hard. And they only have to spend 10, 15 minutes. It's like the drive-through window at McDonald's. And, we practice very differently than that.
We do. And the interesting thing is that individualized medicine, individualization is what people want, especially when they know that there are doctors that offer that it's possible to be treated as an individual.
Yeah.
They want it, but and I don't think it's that hard to do, but it's certainly not as easy as writing for an antibiotic or saying, oh, well, let's just replace that knee. It's not that easy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's just interesting you say the knee. I just had a patient this week, pretty fit guy, but through COVID, he reinstated his running pattern. So he got back into running, and his leg kept hurting, and he kept, it's okay. And I'm just getting older. I have this knee thing going on, but I'll keep running. So he ran a half marathon and thought, my knee is really a problem. So he finally went and got an MRI on it. And he has a tibial plateau fracture. And it's been that way probably for, he's thinking at least 10 years, he remembers the injury. So here's this guy running on a broken leg. And and he says, well, they say, they're going to have to put that putty stuff in my joint and all this stuff. I said, why don't we just get it to heal? And he's like, what? I said, why don't we get your joint to heal up? So with the right nutrition, the right physical therapy on that, electrical stim through there, we can get that to heal up. You don't have to go through surgery for that. So he's like, I never even thought about that. It's like,
he didn't know it was possible.
No, he didn't even know it was an option or a possibility. I said, I've healed a lot of non-union fractures through the years. So your body has the power to do that. I think I blew his mind.
Isn't it amazing? The body's amazing. The body's amazing. So I can remember when the concept of individualization clicked in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't in school. So in school, I understood that protocols, allopathic protocols didn't necessarily bring about healing. But what I had started learning was naturopathic protocols. There was a lot of naturopathic protocols, and it might seem on the surface, at least it did to me, that we do have protocols, but our protocols are really determine what's not working about this person in front of you and what their body needs, how it needs to be assisted to heal. And then so in a way that is a protocol, right? We identify something's not working, and we figure out what that is and what that body needs. And so that's sort of, when I graduated, that's sort of what my understanding of individualization is, or was. And then that first year I was out and I went and spent time in the clinic with the Jim, and we talked a lot about individualization, because people would come in and he'd look at me and he'd say, okay, so we'd see a patient, we'd leave the room, and he'd say, okay, what do you want to do? What are we going to do here? And then we'd go back in and he'd tell the patient what we were going to do, right? What they were going to do. So I can remember those first few people that I saw with him when I was like, well, so what is the herbal protocol for joint pain? Or what is, what do we do for this? And I can remember he sort of tipped his head to the side and looked at me. He said, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are you talking about? No, this person right here, what's going on with them? And after a week to 10 days, I don't know, 30 patients later, is when that finally clicked in my brain what individualization meant.
Yeah. Right. You got to see it in action.
I did.
In the clinic. Right. He was choosing particular medicine and particular things for that person at that time. It's not like, well, everybody needs calcium and everybody, no, he was like, this person, the issue is this. This person has a subluxation and needs an adjustment with that. This person needs, he was individualizing that specific care.
He was, but it wasn't until I saw it and I got to talk through it, those with each patient with him, without listening to him tell the patient, right? He wanted me to pull it from my head. And I was so discouraged the first day. I said to him, I didn't learn anything in school. I didn't learn this.
Right.
How am I supposed to know how to do this? I learned homeopathy. And to me, individualization was a natural part of the homeopathic remedy, but I just didn't extend that to the rest of medicine, the rest of what we do.
Right.
And by the end of the time, that I spent with him, I realized I actually did know. I did learn the tools. I just needed to figure out how to put it together and apply it. And that was what was so valuable from him, and what is so valuable from NMI, I think.
Yeah, that we provide that learning experience, so you understand how to put all the puzzle pieces together, how to pull all the horses together, right, to for the same goal. Yeah. There was a couple. Is this a good time to throw in more quotes?
I got more quotes.
Okay. I don't know if Jim said this. I don't know where I got this quote from. The manifestation of disease is different for everybody. And I think that's in Linlar. Hippocrates says, things which disagree with some are well borne by others, while on the contrary, if something were dangerous to all mankind, it would have the same effect on everybody, which is not true. I like that one. That was Hippocrates. Organon, paragraph 6. All the perceptible signs represent the disease in its whole extent. That is, together they form the true and only conceivable portrait of the disease. So that, the individualization is so ingrained in homeopathy, like you said, but to take that further to using all of our modalities and philosophy in naturopathic nature cure, that's where the power is. We're pulling with all of those 6 horses to make a therapeutic pathway for patients to heal. Yeah, so those are the main things I pulled up. Like I said, I start reading Linlar right before this, before these talks, and I find more things to tab and more things to go. I was like, I think we have 2 or 3 more axioms other than the 11 that I initially presented. So
Oh, that's cool.
At some point. Yeah. So
it's one of the things that when I do lots of talks and I do lots of free webinars, even though I'm not taking patients, I do consults and then I refer them out to people. So this way I get to still have my toe in medicine and I don't have to stress myself out I just don't have the time right now.
Yeah.
And when I do these talks, I start with individualization when I'm talking, because I want to get people's attention that in naturopathy, they are seen as a unique organism experiencing unique things that have gone wrong, and they need a unique plan to restore their body. And this is what hooks people into the talks that I give. And they come up, and it doesn't matter what else I've said in that talk, what herb I may have talked about, or any other modalities that I've talked about, or what homeopathy is, it doesn't matter. So many people will come up after and say, it seems so simple that you would just look at me as an individual entity. Why don't other doctors do that? And I think that's a really good question. Why don't they do that? What has happened to individualization in medicine is insurance happened, time, people, right? The amount of time people could spend. And it takes, I think, I'm going to say this, but then I'll soften it. It takes a certain level of intelligence to understand the concept of individualization. Now, I think there's people out there not employing it who have the potential to understand it. That's how I'm going to soften it. But you have to learn to think like that, because it is more complex. It's not just write a script.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to even pre-med courses. I recall being indoctrinated with this medical model, this theory of allopathy, I guess is what I'll call it. Even back in pre-med, I was taking microbiology courses. I love microbiology. I aced every in fact, I got 100% on my board exams for microbiology. I love microbiology. It's like bugs in a petri dish. I think it's the coolest thing because I'm a bug person, but that's not how you cure people. That's not how people get better. But I saw the indoctrination early on in my pre-med. And I think as we always think that medical doctors are the brightest of the brightest, right? They take the brightest, the top people, and but then they indoctrinate them to tell them, hey, we've done all this scientific research and we have these protocols. All you have to do is, if you have that person, you practice rheumatology, you're going to see all these people with these rheumatic diseases. We got all these drugs for that. Don't worry about it. You can just write this script and all their pain will go away. But it doesn't. And they're still sick and they're still miserable. But they come back again and, well, I'll change that drug or I'll make it stronger. Or, hey, we got these new biologic drugs now that suppress your immune system and they'll do even better for you. No, they don't. But that's a whole nother scary thing. So it's really amazing the indoctrination that the medical model does to these doctors. And it's the very few that have the courage to step outside the bounds and go, why isn't my patient better? How come that's not making their life better? How come they have to keep seeing me to keep taking these drugs? And then they go, wait a sec, there's a better way to do this, and it's that rare doctor that does that. And they have to totally turn their back to all that money and all that power and all the esteem and everything they get. Oh, I spent, all these years going to medical school. I can't change what I'm doing. That's scary, right? So it's really scary and hard to change that paradigm and jump into the other side of this, that, once you do the paradigm shift, you can see the other side. But you can't go back, right? Because now you know what you know, and it empowers you to actually support your patient to heal. And
Yes.
I've met a couple really cool medical doctors who've done that, and it's a leap for them, but it's amazing. And so what we hold is in naturopathic medicine is really powerful. It's incredibly unique in the world today, at least in America. And it's like Jim said, he's like, I want to read Lindlar, and I want to is anybody looking at me? Because I'm afraid I'm going to are they going to arrest me for reading this book? Because that's how powerful this is. Yeah. And I think there's a question here. I saw a question, Tara asked, where do the axioms pulled from? So the axioms are pulled from partially, Jim started, and I started later with him, pulling them from Lindlar. So this is Lindlar's book on philosophy, Volume 1, Natural Therapeutics. That's where most of them come from, but I can tell you, when I read other books that have these truths in them, you can see these things in other writing, because these principles are always there. These principles of nature will show up again and again and again and again, and people discover them. It's like, oh, I just discovered this thing. It's like, yeah, well, it's always been there. You just realized it now. Yeah. So that's where it comes from mostly, is from Lindlar, from Hahnemann, from our old teachers that hopefully we get to introduce you guys to.
And it's not just in medicine. Right. We're talking about the medical aspect of the axioms, right?
Right.
But it's not just it's in environmental studies, the planet, in psychology, the way we interact with each other, the way we choose to live in cities or more rural and form a tribe. It's everywhere. You're just doing an amazing job of having you and Jim having identified the initial ones, and then in you finding more. I have a doctor that came to me about 2 weeks ago, and he's retired. He's almost 80. He's an MD, and for 40 years of his life, so half of his life, he has lived with burning stomach. And he has tried every prescription. He's done all kinds of wacky diets. He's seen massage therapists. So, he's got one toe he's dipping in this other world, right? I could tell from the things he said. He fasted, and he fasted once, and during his fast was the best he felt near the end of the fast. And so he came to me because he had read an article on homeopathy, and he wanted to know if there was a remedy for burning stomach. And I was like, no, there isn't a remedy. There's a lot of remedies that can produce that symptom. And so he was fascinated with homeopathy. He wanted to know more about it. And then, we just talked about a few things. He was so obviously reacting to certain foods, right? Which you can tell, because if you say, well, what happens after you eat that? And he can say, well, my stomach hurts. So we go through this realm of things, and I hooked him up with a really good practitioner in Tulsa. But before he went that way, we talked about just this idea of, what does your body need? Mm-hmm. You're not going to find a protocol here. Let's figure out what your body needs. And I actually prescribed arsenicum for him. So he was super fastidious. Like, he was straightening things on my desk. which was really irritating me because I am not super fastidious. I'm a little more sulfur-like, right? I know where everything is, don't touch it.
Oh, yeah, right. So he's like organizing all your little stuff.
Oh yeah, like stack paper, like my pencils were all in different directions in my pencil jar. And he had a lot of anxiety about a few people in his life dying, because if they die, who's going to take care of him? So he had that classic arsenicum's got anxiety about other people's health, but because of how it directly impacts them. So I gave him the arsenicum and said, look, this will not be the only prescription you need of this. You likely are going to have to go through different remedies, and you may even need a different remedy at times. So different strengths, different remedy. Let's get you with someone who can follow your case. So this was just a couple weeks ago, and I got an email from him yesterday. He has been stomach burning free for a week. And now they did hydro with him, and they had him, they're doing other stuff with him as well. But that's what happens when you individualize. 40 years he tried to get rid of burning stomach. Right. 40 years.
Yeah. 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 Isn't that incredible? All the drugs and all the things he's tried. Yeah.
I was just excited that I love to see someone come from the other paradigm curious and then have success. Who was it? Was it Herring, who was a complete disbeliever of homeopathy? And then he set out to prove it wrong. And then he became one of the biggest advocates because he saw a truth. He saw something scientific in there. Follow this process, and this happens every single time.
Right. And that brings me to Lindlar's repeatable processes, right? So here's my other little note I have here to mention today. The 6 treatment outcomes. We have talked about this in Vital Gatherings. We have put it up on screens, but I'm going to say it again. So the 6 treatment outcomes: 1, establish normal surroundings and natural habits of life in accord with nature's laws. 2, economize the vital force. Now that comes to, if I look at the axioms, that's going to be law of conservation of energy. So we'll come to that in the future. Build up the blood on a natural basis. Supply the blood with its natural constituents in right proportions. That's number 3. Number 4, promote the elimination of waste material and poisons without in any way injuring the human body. What better way to do that than hydrotherapy? 5, correct mechanical lesions. And 6, arouse the individual to the highest possible degree to the consciousness of personal responsibility and to the necessity of intelligent personal effort and self-help. That's the Catechisms of Nature Cure by Lindlar. And that's what we do. That's what we do every day with every patient.
So for folks who have heard this a lot, and now you're sitting monthly talking about axioms, let's explain the axioms in relationship to the catechism. Right? The catechism, let me give a stab at it because I don't know that I can articulate it. I've not tried to do this before. So the catechisms are like, above all else, these are the 6 things that you have to do with every patient. You have to do these things with the patient. The axioms, for me, provide the foundation of why. Why do we do these things, and why do these things work that we're supposed to do? What are the rules, the laws that govern why these things that you do bring about the healing of the human? How close did I get?
You did great, because I've had criticism already about the axioms. It's like, well, you can't use these axioms as therapeutic things. I go, no, they're not. The axioms are not therapeutic. They're the laws or the rules of nature that guide us to those that you have to work through. You have to work in that box to bring about, use your modalities in that confines, because that's the way nature works. You can't change the axioms. They will always be there. They always have been there. They will always for eternity be there. It's like just because you know about the law of suppression, that helps you to understand don't suppress. You want to heal. You know about the law, the axiom of individuality, that you need to treat each person differently. You know about the law of minimum dose. You know about the law of health as balance. And so because you understand how nature's working, then you understand why you're doing the treatment outcomes that you're doing, right? So they inform us, they guide us, and if you oppose them, you won't get the outcome you're hoping for, right? And at times you need to maybe suppress a symptom. Just know that you're doing it, and that as that person then gets through that thing that they're doing, maybe they're doing chemotherapy or radiation or whatever they're doing to get through cancer or what have you, have to go through a surgical procedure, what have you. Just know that you're bringing that person out of that and you're supporting them to heal with these axioms of nature in mind, because that's where true healing happens. Otherwise, you suppress the condition deeper and deeper, and you end up with deeper disease states. And so the axioms are just informing us of the rules, reminding us of the rules that we're working with, because you can't change them. That's just the way nature is, and will always be that way.
Like gravity. If you jump off the cliff, you're gonna you can wish all you want that that's not gonna happen. But if you jump off, you're gonna hit the ground. It's just how birth works.
I don't care if you believe in gravity or not.
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen. So exactly. I don't believe this is, the axioms are I don't believe in that. Well, I don't care if you believe in it or not. They're just real. So yeah, it's that's why I think it's interesting when people say, well, I don't know if I really believe in naturopathic medicine. It's like, okay, fine, don't, but it's just the way the planet works. It's the way nature works on this place we live on, this little blue ball that we live on.
I suspect they're universal. I've always suspected that they're universal. The therapies might look different on different planets. And yes, I'm just talking as if we know that there's life everywhere, because I believe that there's life everywhere.
Yep.
And so the tools might be different.
Yeah, true.
But I think the laws that guide, I think the axioms, I think the laws are universal. I mean, we're all made out of the same stuff. It's all put together the same way. So why wouldn't it be the way it works on some other planet?
Yeah, like Carl Sagan says, we're all stardust. So,
we are.
Yeah.
Right. We're light manifesting in tangible feeling reality.
Yeah.
So then, what you just said made me think of another reason why it's difficult in today's society for this to become the mainstream way of practicing medicine. And that's because of the scientific method, right? So if you don't have a treatment to test and to do clinical studies on thousands of people with echinacea, right? If you don't have that because you're individualizing and those people didn't all get echinacea, that scientific method and the way that, more importantly, the way they do the statistical analysis, it completely falls apart because your N is not big enough. But if you can do it with, what were those statistics? Who was talking to us about that? It was a Vital Conversation, maybe 2017, 2018. It might have been Greg Nye who was talking about it. And he said, there's another way to do statistics where the thing that was applied can be different for everybody, but it's the parameters. I don't know. Do you remember this?
I do remember that. And what I actually was just talking to Pamela Snyder about this recently. She brings it back to the students when she teaches, is that the scientific method doesn't just incorporate double-blind placebo studies. it actually, there's three parts to this stool, and I wish she was here to say this more eloquently than I, and I'm trying to remember how she said it. You have the research part, but you also have the outcomes, the clinical outcomes, which we have bajillion clinical outcomes that we can say, hey, this is why we know hydrotherapy works. This is why we know homeopathy works. We have these clinical outcomes. There's a third one, and forgive me, Pamela, because I know if you see this, you're going to go, Tish, you should have said da da da. Anyway, there's a third part to that. There's three parts to the stool. And so it's not just the science-based, double-blind placebo study that we hang our hat on, and that's what's missing in that piece about research. And we think it's just because it's in a peer-reviewed journal that it's made all those criteria, and it hasn't. So, and the science is just there for us to understand nature's laws.
Yes.
That's all science is. When when I was in undergrad, and I'm an entomologist, and I'm looking at this little insect and trying to figure out its little ecosystem or whatever, that's science. You're trying, or you're in microbiology, you're trying to figure out how does that germ live? What will kill it? What will make it grow? That you're just observing nature. And so the axioms actually are like the very basis, I think it's like the very fundamental part of science, because we're just observing nature. We're just putting into context in whatever science you're studying, geology or geography or planetary black holes or whatever you're studying. It all is because you're observing something happening and changing, and that is part of nature.
So someone just made a comment, well, two comments. Was patient values the third leg of the stool, perhaps?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I don't think it was. I don't know if I even should have brought it up, because I totally am botching it right now.
No, you're not. So then also Tara says, I always say science is just a language to explain nature.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To explain what we are observing.
Right.
Well, because without science, like Béchamp used science to explain why these minuscule organisms were present and could even thrive and multiply, whereas Pasteur was trying to explain the same thing, and right, he gave it all to the organisms and their ability to proliferate and infect and invade, where
right.
Béchamp was very clear. They only will thrive and multiply if the conditions that they need are there.
Right. That's right. That's right. And you know that in microbiology, because if you're growing something in the petri dish and you don't have the right medium, it doesn't grow.
Exactly.
Right. So you don't get a strep infection unless you have the right environment for the strep to be there. That's the toxemia. That's the underlying problem. It's not that the bugs are there. It's that you have the toxemic situation that they can grow. So that's...
And when you fix that, it becomes inhospitable to those organisms, and they hot-footed out of there. The body clears them out, and boom.
Yeah,
no
they can't survive. That's right. That's totally, and it's you can take this to everything. It's like permaculture. It's like growing your garden and making sure you've got the right stuff to grow the tomatoes so that the potato bugs don't come in and just totally devastate them, which that happened to me once. So, and then I realized there was no nutrition in my soil. So,
yes.
It's really interesting. You've got to, it all comes back to feeding the cells what they need, and understanding that health is balance, and all of these things we're talking about here with axioms. So, boy, time goes really fast. I just realized we're getting close here. Are there, I don't know, do you want to say anything else there? Or should we open up for questions, Eli?
Yeah, let's see if anybody wants to say anything and join the conversation here. Although this group has been more shy of late.
Yeah, you can ask questions. Oh, Dan Young said, "We are stardust. We are golden." Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Love it.
Yes,
Funny.
that was a good song.
That was a good song. They're great songs. Well, I'm going to pull up my Lindlar book here. What else did I tab this morning? No, that was going to be later. Conservation of energy.
All the things that we have done since 2016, all the conversations we've had and all the vital gatherings that we've had, I think they all sort of came together and it was the right time to talk about these laws of nature.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really hard for me in my first year of practice was knowing where to start with somebody.
Right. That's what students always ask me. Well, how do you know where to start?
Yes.
My dad would always say, you start with the gut. You start with the hole in the middle. And what he meant is if you look at, do I have one here? Yes. Oh, cool. If you look at a chart of iris diagnosis, the hole in the center here, right outside the pupil, which way am I going? Outside the pupil is the stomach. So he's talking about the stomach ring. So
that's right.
If you treat the stomach, then you treat all the organs. So he would always say, treat the hole in the center.
Treat the hole in the center. Oh, that's so cool. I wish I could have met your dad.
He was quite a character.
Yeah, Nate, go ahead. Questions are good.
Hey, a couple weeks ago, after the conversation, Peter was talking about, hey, we have the laws of nature and they're immutable, they don't change, and yet 5 different practitioners can do 5 different things and I'll get perfect results. I have an answer up here, but I don't know how to get it out here.
Okay.
Your answer.
Well, my answer is because that doctor is looking at that patient and giving what that patient needs. So that's the individualization that we're talking about. So that's simply why they can get such good results, but do different things. It's because you have a different person in front of you. And you don't have the same person. Now, if that same person saw all those doctors, I bet they would be pretty similar in therapeutics or approach. That's just my take on it.
That's a good way to put it. I appreciate it.
Well, it's also like a puzzle. So for some people who have a hard time wrapping their heads around this, patients usually, right? Or people new to our paradigm, I think of each person as a jigsaw puzzle. And, you have to figure out how those pieces are not put together the right way. Where are the pieces not fitting really tight and really snug to keep everything coherent and cohesive and producing this picture that when it's all put together the right way makes sense. So I have a lot of folks that like that sort of analogy to how they're treated. Yeah.
I think part of the answer to the question of where do you start with the patient is, at least in my clinic, the way my dad did it, the way Dr. Carroll always did it, was you take the case, what are your chief complaints? What are, and what's unique about those complaints to you, which may lead you to a remedy at that point, maybe not. But then you start with the diet. You find out what their food intolerance is. Jim would use allergy panels, but somehow you determine what is the inflammatory food for that patient. I use the Carroll food intolerance method. So we determine, okay, this person can't have dairy and they shouldn't combine fruit and sugar together. So we're going to start with that. Just stop putting that inflammatory food into the metabolism. Let's open the emunctories with hydrotherapy. Let's get the liver working, the kidneys working. Let's get the toxemia moving. And then as symptom pictures come up clear, oftentimes after that is when I'll see a really much clearer homeopathic case.
Me too.
I'll give the remedy. I'll say, well, in the meantime, here's a botanical. Let's do some liver cleanse herbs for you. Let's give some lung botanicals for you, or whatever we need to do. And so but you always start thinking first about where's the vitality of this patient and what is their toxic load and what is the gentlest way that I can start moving that for them. Because people will say, oh, I can't take supplements, they bother me. Oh, I can't take botanicals, I get sick with those. Oh, I had a reaction to a homeopathic remedy, I don't want homeopathy. I get this kind of thing all the time, and it's because the emunctories weren't open and because they didn't have those pathways open for eliminating the toxins that they had a bad outcome. And so you've got to start with the process of at least put them on a really clean diet,
Right.
Just put them on a simple, clean diet. If you have a hunch that they have an issue with a particular food group, then say, hey, don't eat dairy. For sure, get them off sugar. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
And start getting them actual eating clean food, just basic food, like 2 ingredients on something, nothing packaged, nothing processed. Just start with the basics. People start feeling better and better and better. And then you can move into the deeper levels of your therapeutics. Anyway,
If you have to go, well, once you take care of those basics, there's not a whole lot left that you have to do. Because why? Because the body heals itself when it has what it needs, and you're not poisoning it, and you've stimulated the healing ability.
And that's the therapeutic order. If you remember the therapeutic order, there's an order. You don't just go, oh, here are these things, and I'll jump in the middle. You start with the therapeutic order because it's an order. So you start with those things, and then you don't usually have to do the aggressive other things at the other part of the order. So yeah. That's why that's put together that way. And actually, I found in Lindlar the basis of the therapeutic order that Jared put together. And although I don't think Jared even knew, he had never read Lindlar. He told me he'd never read Lindlar. He learned it from my dad. So my dad, coming from Dr. Carroll, from Lindlar to Carroll to my dad, is where Jared got the therapeutic order. And it's in here, the healing model of disease.
Yes.
So it's in Lindlar about aggravation, destruction, reconstruction. He calls it a little differently. Incubation, aggravation, destruction, abatement of absorption, and reconstruction. That's how he's laid it out.
Which is healing. In big fancy words, it's healing.
Yeah, it's all semantics, but same stuff. It's been there forever, guys. We just get to use it again and again and again. But that's what, the NMI is all about, is to teach this and keep this alive for future generations, because it's too important. We can't lose this. And it's so hard to recreate it all again. I can't imagine if everything went flat and we lost all of this information. It will be there. People will find it again, but it'll be another 200 years when they go, hey, there's this thing called nature cure.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I agree with you completely. It's the gut. You have to start with the gut, because that's like a cornerstone. That's a cornerstone. It may be the keystone. That might be
it's the keystone. If that's not right, you're not going to get anywhere.
No. Well, you might palliatively, but you're not going to see true healing.
Exactly. You won't get true healing. You won't get true healing if that toxemia is still there, or you're still poisoning the body. I tell people, you cannot poison the body back to health. It is an impossible thing to put more poison in the body and be healthier. It does not work that way, ever.
Well, what's our number one? The physician's primary role is to restore the sick to health, to cure as it is termed.
Yeah.
It's more than a physician shall do no harm. It's more than that. For me, whether you're doing harm or you're not doing something that harms, but it certainly doesn't stimulate healing. To me, those are two sins or crimes or missteps that belong in the same boat. Okay, don't do any harm, but if you haven't taken it to that next step of assisting the body to heal itself, then you're not doing your job as a physician.
No, you're not. Not as a naturopath.
No.
Yep.
Well, you say that. I think all physicians on this planet, whatever tool they use, like, I'll always believe this. I will always believe that you can have different kinds of doctors using different kinds of therapies, but that the first rule is that you are supposed to be stimulating, assisting the organism in front of you to heal, and you may not do any harm in that process unless it's unavoidable to save a life, which is a whole other conversation.
Correct. Right.
But
Right.
then I might get, I don't know. I won't say any of those thoughts out loud. Nature has a built-in mechanism for making sure that what doesn't work in an organism is not passed on to continue not working through generations of life. Life has that built into it, right? And
Right.
Darwin called it, what did he call it? Oh my God, evolution of species, evolution.
Yeah, it's evolution of species. That's that's the stressors we put on the body or on the ecosystem or on that individual critter that causes it to the genomics to change and say, okay, in this environment, I have to be this way to survive.
Yes. So, I mean, what are we producing as far as a species for reproducing at this point? Who is reproducing at this point? And what are they passing on to the next generation? So we know with the people we're working with, we're reestablishing health and their genetics are much healthier. And then they reproduce healthier offspring. What about people who aren't so lucky as to find one of us and become healthier in that way?
Yeah,
they still can reproduce.
We have a terrible state in our society these days of illness, and the miasms are so deep, and the disease processes are so deep, and it's sad. What, autism now is 1 in every 5 children or something?
Last I read, it was 1 in every 4, and this new wave of mRNA, we're seeing the numbers jump again.
Oh my God.
Because they're just throwing it on top of the other, whatever, 27 injections that
That's impossible. How can a little body handle that?
Well, they're not.
They're not. It's incredible. Incredible to think that's okay.
I've seen a ton of kids. So for those of you who don't know me, more than half of my practice was inadvertently and accidentally made up of people on the spectrum, because one of my first patients was on the spectrum and they got better. They got all the way better. And because of that, word spreads really fast through communities like this. And so I have to tell you, in the last 5 years, I have seen so many people who were not given autism as a diagnosis, but they are clearly on the spectrum. Whether it's because their nervous system is oversensitive and not functioning the right way because it was poisoned, or because they weren't given the right nutrition that they needed. They've been on a life of all kinds of food intolerances on top of being filled full of poisons for no good reason at all.
Right.
I think the autism diagnosis is 1 in 4, but I really think that these children are being damaged.
Yeah.
Irrevocably damaged.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing as normal children now in my day would have been definitely autistic or some other diagnosis, because it's really amazing to me to watch the children being born now that are from my patients or our grandchildren or great-grandchildren of people that, my dad treated. These kids are so different from the kids out there in the wild, in the world, I see in grocery stores and things, it's like, whoa, there's almost like two different species of people
I've
out
been
there,
saying that for years.
right?
Yes.
Right. It's really incredible because I'll have this one little girl who comes in and she's just easy she's a 4-year-old, easy to talk to, sits down, plays with her things, listens to her parents, puts her stuff away, her toys away when she leaves. And then you've got, the new child that you see from parents that you've never met before. They're coming in because they have difficulties with their children. And these kids are like all over the place there, and the parents are scattered. They can't even concentrate on what you're trying to. It's like, okay, let's start ground zero here. It's really difficult. You can just see these two dynamics. And I think our society is really hurting because of that. And I think our IQ has really dropped.
I think so too.
And I don't think they're talking about that, but I can see that in the general public and the kids out there.
Yes, they think differently.
Differently.
There's a different way of resonating. There's a different frequency. It's a different way of thinking. And if we could hear the sound that their body makes, I really think it would be a song that sounds like an orchestra out of tune, where the people who have been treated for generations, even with nature cure, right, they're cohesive. There's an in-tune symphony, and you can see it manifest in real life.
The harmonics are there, or the discord is in the other people. It's really, and I think that's maybe why we have so much gender dysphoria. It might be why we have so much confusion of basic things in life. That's just my theory, but it's clearly evident. And the nutritional status and the synthetic foods don't help.
No,
they make it worse. Yeah.
But it makes me so grateful for NMI for keeping this information alive, for our teachers, for you. I'm grateful for Jim, grateful for all of it, because this to me is hope. Even if we have 2 or 3 or 400 people who come through NMI, that's 2 or 3 or 400 little hubs of true healing and knowledge, and it'll just spread from each person outward. I mean, I see this happening.
We're the beacons of light, guys, so keep it going
and individualize.
Individualize.
Because that's the only reason it works.
It really is. That's the doctrine of snowflakes. Let's see, the next one's going to be doctrine of signatures. Ooh, that's a cool one.
It is. It's so fascinating.
So, well, this has been a joy with you, Eli. Thanks for doing these with us. For me too, I really appreciate the time speaking with you. I don't get enough time to do that. And it's been fun. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. If y'all have any questions or anything, pop them up in the Vital Conversation. We answer those as we can. And anyone can answer. I mean, it's not like, just Tish and I are the only two that can talk about this. We're hoping y'all are talking about this too, especially with your patients and your colleagues. So important. Invite people to join NMI. Invite them to come to the Vital Gathering, which will be in Phoenix. Was it in 2 weeks?
When 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Not so this weekend, but the next weekend we're going to be in Phoenix, and hope you can come, or at least join online. It's better if you're in person, because we're going to do some cool stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there's no other questions.